Hey, everybody, this is Josh McKinney, and I just want to welcome you to episode 95 of the I Suck at Jiu Jitsu show. Usually when If you're one of the people that watch on YouTube, yes, I know. I'm still in my living room. We're still doing some home reno type stuff. And, well, it's not going great. I'm still in my living room recording my podcast, not in my office, not in what I call my studio. Yeah, it happens. What can you do? Anyway, let's just jump in to who I have for you guys today. Today's going to be really fun. You guys are really going to like this episode. This is the only time on the show that this is probably the only time that I've ever told somebody that they should start their own podcast. But in towards the end of the episode, I have Charlie Hiersche on, who is a black belt from Kansas City. He runs his own school. He is also a firefighter, and he's a super interesting guy. And I really, really think that you guys are going to love his opinions on just jiu-jitsu, not just training, not just mindset, but kind of the culture of jiu-jitsu and things like that. You guys are really going to enjoy it. He really offers a cool perspective, but it's his way of communicating it that I think is unique. He does a really, really good job communicating his perspective to you guys. I think it really could be helpful to a lot of people that listen to this, especially if you are somebody that doesn't get to train at a huge school. You don't get to train at a school that people recognize when they see the name of it. And I think there's more people doing jiu-jitsu that deal with that than anything. There are only a handful of really big name schools in the United States. And I mean, even around the world, there aren't a ton of huge name jiu-jitsu schools. And so when you get guys like Charlie, who kind of started in the middle of nowhere and we're able to become a black belt, we're able to compete leading up into black belt and compete as a black belt and be very good. That's actually how Charlie and I met. Devin Prata and I Devin was just on an episode a few episodes ago. I should have looked at what number that was, but Devin was just on. That's an awesome episode. You guys should really check that out. If you love to hear crazy stories about training, I think that would be an episode for you guys. But Charlie and I met as brown belts. We actually fought each other and became friends after that because he's just a good dude. And it's just similar stories. You have guys that come up and it's a struggle. You're trying to make a name for yourself, whether in Granite City, Illinois, or Lawrence, Kansas. And you look at this as like, these are towns nobody's ever heard of. They have gyms nobody's ever heard of. But they have black belts that are still legitimate black belts. And that's because they figured out how to learn on their own. They figured out how to get good. And Charlie definitely has done that. And you guys will really love to kind of get his perspective on training, on mindset, and everything that we talk about. But before we jump into the episode, I never get on you guys. I never get mad at you guys, but I'm a little mad at you guys. So I was looking at some of the, what do you call that? Analytics. I was looking at some of the analytics for the podcast. The analytics are looking great. Numbers keep going up. It's really cool. There has not been a day in a long time that like hundreds of people have listened or haven't listened to the I Suck at Jiu Jitsu show. Better way to phrase that. Every day for the past while, more than hundreds of people, not more than. Yeah, hundreds of people have listened to the I Suck at Jiu Jitsu show. After that horrible English, probably less. But here's where the problem comes in. You have all those people listening, tons of listens. It's going great. Everything's great. Everything's going exactly the way it should be. And then guess what happens? I look at my reviews on iTunes and there are only 27. Half of the people that listen to this podcast listen on Apple Podcasts. Yet, less than 1%, probably less than 0.1% that have listened to the show have left a review. So if you guys listen on Apple Podcasts, please give me a review. I would love if that review was 5 stars, but if not, just be honest. If you hate the show, go ahead and tell us. But I would just love if I got a little more interaction. I would love if you guys let others know about how much you're getting out of this show. And I know you're like, man, but if I let my training partners listen, well, then they're going to be better than me. Well, that probably won't happen. Don't worry. I will only tell you the secret still and not your training partners. But make sure to give a review if you guys have a free second and if you listen on Apple Podcasts. But without further ado, let's jump right into the episode. Charlie, how are you doing, man?
I'm not too bad, man. How are you?
I am doing good. It's been a good day so far. I thought we could start something not jiu-jitsu related that I found really interesting in doing some research. Tell me a little bit about the Mad Greek.
Oh, man. The Mad Greek is a restaurant my parents, my mom and my stepfather owned for 30 years. And whenever I was 18, I was fresh out of high school, they asked me to come up and move up and help them run that. So I was like, like all my whole life growing up as a kid, I was like, I want to move with my mom and I want to help her run the restaurant. It's going to be this awesome family affair. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait. And so they straight up asked me like, hey, move up. We need you here right now. So like I broke my lease back home in Missouri and I moved up.
How old are you at this time?
I was just about to turn 19.
Oh, all right.
So I moved up and got all my stuff unpacked and I was there and my stepfather took me out in the front yard and he was like, hey, we're leaving for Greece for 8 months tomorrow. And they kind of threw me into the fire there. So like I was a 19-year-old having to learn how to run a business and balance a checkbook and like order food for, this company that sold over $1 million a year in food and like manage 30 and 40-year-olds that had been there for like 15 years and stuff like that. But yeah, that was an interesting part of the journey of my life.
What was the learning curve on that? What do you feel like by the end of the 8 months that you were in good shape, or were you still struggling at that point?
Oh man. So, I mean, to relate it to jiu-jitsu, it was like, being, I felt like I was still a white belt at the end of it, but like I did my best and I survived. It was like back whenever like you and I started training, like there wasn't like this, like, oh, we're all nice and we're going to hold your hand through jiu-jitsu, at least for me. And I'm sure it was the same for you. It was, you're going to join this and you're going to get ragdolled and you're going to have to earn your spot.
Mm-hmm.
And that was very much what it was for probably the first 5 years. I learned a lot about talking to people, communicating with people, and, understanding just in general how to deal with people and cope with stress.
So on that, this was just a setup for a highly debated topic too. Yeah. I feel like you should be the expert on it. Is it Euro? Is it gyro? What is it called?
It's Euro.
It's Euro.
Definitely not gyro.
See, me and one of my buddies almost got in a fist fight like 2 weeks ago because he was claiming gyro. And I'm like, it's not gyro, dude. And so I'm glad that I'll make sure to, as soon as I get off of the podcast, I'm going to text him and let him know.
You're on the winning side of that argument. I'm half Greek, so I know.
Good. So before we move on, if I were to go to, it's Lawrence, Kansas. Lawrence, Kansas.
Lawrence, Kansas. Yeah.
If I were to go to Lawrence, Kansas and eat at the Mad Greek, what should I get?
Probably the combo dinner. It's got like a little bit of everything that's Greek. It's got spinach pies. It's got tzatziki. It's got gyro, pita, moussaka, which is like a Greek casserole, and like something called a dolma. It's like a rice and beef stuffed grape leaf. But yeah, that's what I would get. That's what I tell everyone to get whenever they go.
And then am I finishing with baklava? Is that the
man? So that's one thing, like whenever we left and we sold it to who we sold it to. Like that's the one kind of a thing that we left to them, but like they kind of kept up with it. Like we were always known for our desserts, like, and so they have always just a crazy dessert selection. So I'd say if you're going to get something that you weren't going to get anywhere else, get the chocolate baklava, chocolate halva baklava.
All right. All right. That'll be, I'll keep that in mind next time
Yeah.
I'm around. I'll make sure to.
I'll have you out and we can go there after.
That sounds like a plan. That sounds like a plan, man. So that I'm sure that helped you with being able to run a business like you have a jiu-jitsu school now. Do you feel like you kind of had a leg up on some of the other people that start their own schools?
Yes and no. So my full-time job, I'm a career firefighter. And paramedic. Whenever I left the restaurant industry, man, I did learn a lot about business. And whenever I hear about people talk about starting their jiu-jitsu school and they're talking about, going through the process, there's a lot of times where I'm like, like you're not thinking all the way through. Like you don't understand the checks and balances of this. Like you don't understand where your bottom line is really going to be your bottom line. But for me, my school's not really about money. For me, it's to have I felt like something was missing in Lawrence as far as jiu-jitsu. I wanted to create an environment where, really, really tough people could go and beat the crap out of each other if they wanted. But if Joe Blow from off the street just wants to come in and try to be a little bit tougher, they can do that. But yeah, so as far as the business side, I'm really loose on the business side. Like I have people sometimes come for a month and they're like, oh, hey, should I pay? And I'm like, oh yeah, sure. And, I express to them like, I appreciate you coming up to me because, the reason I started it was to have that environment. Big goal of mine with the school is to eventually for the paying members, like have free seminars, like have you out or have Kyotera out or have, just whatever big name out. That's the big goal of my club.
That's really cool. Where does the personal responsibility come in when you say, I knew that there needed to be jiu-jitsu in Lawrence? Where does that is that something that you have felt before in different aspects, or was that purely from thinking about jiu-jitsu and you said, oh yeah, this is going to be the best thing for me?
So, there is another jiu-jitsu school here in Lawrence, and nothing to knock on them, but I helped teach there for a little bit, and they're good people. It's a decent little club, but like just for me, I never really liked the business end of things, and I wanted it just be an environment to where like, hey, like if you can't pay, like I'm going to help you out. Like not that I can do that for everybody, obviously, but I wanted to run something that was really more about the martial arts and a place where people could say like, I'm going to go here. And like, my goal is to be a world beater and my instructor goes out and he trains with, tries to find the next best thing always. And he's always got my best interest in that I can go here and with the right people, I can train as hard as I want. And that was something that I just felt like was missing in Lawrence. And again, it's not a knock on the other club in town. It is a great club and I'm friends with the people there, but it's just a little different environment, it's a little different mindset.
The mentality is different. Let's jump right into a little bit of mentality in that sense. When you are looking at training in general, day-to-day training, what is your mentality of coming into the gym?
So I think about jiu-jitsu all the time. Like, whenever I'm at work, like, and the next day I'm thinking about my lesson plan. Like I'm always thinking about having a good plan and a good flow for the month. But like my mentality in training is I try not to be too serious, right? I like to joke with my guys. I like to have fun. I'm not the coach that, if you're late, like I'm not gonna yell at you. It's not going to be push-ups. If I know that you're late consistently for no other reason than being late, I'm going to get on to you. But like it's adult education. Like I don't want somebody to not come in because I'm going to be 5 minutes late. Like, but I do expect a certain level of respect as far as that goes. But like I tell everyone, I told like we had a new guy that came in from Mary's BJJ from Arizona this last week, and I say I don't have a lot of rules in our club. Like, I don't care if you bow onto the mat or anything like that. If you're late, if you have to be late, I just want you to come. But when you're on the mats and I teach a technique, you're drilling the technique the whole time. And if if you're not, I'm going to ask you when the DVD's coming out, because you apparently haven't mastered.
Is that your go-to? Is that your go-to insult when is the DVD coming out?
Yeah, and honestly, that's kind of that's stolen from a guy a black belt that I used to train with every night. Well, actually, I trained with him a lot, but not as much as some people in the area. Dustin Dennis. He used to say that a lot. I got a lot of cleanisms that I still carry every now and then. It's like they're very useful.
Yeah, that one's solid, man. I'll always ask my guys. Anytime I get the questions that are like, well, what if he just does this? I always love to say, hey, how about I just head out? You teach class for us. Yeah. And that's one of my favorite student insults, passive aggressive bashings that you get in front of everybody.
Yeah. Well, I'm like, well, what if a meteor came through the window and struck the earth and then training's over? I mean, it's just a completely different scenario.
That is very true. It's a different situation. What if we weren't doing jiu-jitsu and you could allow strikes? Well, it's different then, man.
Yeah. What if he karate chopped me in the throat? And it's like, well, I'd probably be writhing in pain on the floor.
Yeah, maybe you shouldn't have been playing De La Riva guard then. Probably wasn't the best position for you.
No, definitely not.
But anyway, back to your just standard mindset of training, what you're looking at when you're coming in training. Oh,
yeah, the whole time, right? Work the whole time, right? Always, like, if we're, jogging around the mats, which we don't do a whole lot, but like if we're doing some movement drills, I expect you to hustle to the end of the mat and get there. Like, I want hustle the whole time. Like, I'm certain people, right? That's their thing. Like, that's what's going to make them tough. Like, pushing through to, maybe jog to the end of the mat and get to the next movement drill. Or what I'm really, really big on, like, that's very few things. Like, I'm probably the chillest coach ever. I'll let you get away with a lot of stuff, but I put the timer on for, 6-7 minutes for the rounds, and you have 1 minute to get your water and be with your next partner rolling. Not 1 minute and 15 seconds, not 1 minute and 10 seconds, not 1 minute and 5 seconds. You got 1 minute to get your drink, slap your hands with your next partner, and go.
I like that. I think that's a really important thing.
Yeah, you got to answer the bell, right? Like, in IBJJF, like, I don't think there's any much more intimidating to, whenever you go out of bounds or they tell you to tie your belt or whatever, like, and you're not that guy that's having to do that, you run to the center and you're ready.
Mm-hmm. I think,
let's go. Let's do this.
I think that, just maybe this takes a little bit different of a turn, but I think that understanding that jiu-jitsu isn't just technique, understanding, because I have beaten guys whom I have better or who have better technique than me, and I have lost to guys that I have better technique than them. But so much, there's so many different layers to jiu-jitsu, and just by being strict with yourself and saying like each time I'm going to go, I'm training, I'm there to train. I'm either training or I'm not. I'm there to train hard. I'm going to be at the start of every bell. I'm going to be ready to go. If we're doing bad positions and we only have a 10-second break in between, we're switching partners and getting somebody new. And I think that is such a mindset that isn't as popular because it's not for everyone.
Definitely not.
Do you deal with that when you have guys coming into your gym that, like, it isn't, they realize very quickly that maybe the mentality isn't for them?
Yeah, definitely. We have some people from the other school come in, some people from other schools come in, and like, it is definitely a different mentality. And I think for the most part, people adapt really well to it. But like, once, especially like at the end, once you explain to them, it's like, okay, like, I don't care that you're not ready. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't care that you're not rested. Like, take your beating,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you're not ready, take your beating. Like, it's what you need. Like, be ready. Like, I'm a big name. Like, if you sign your name on the dotted line for something, like you say you're going to do something or a competition or whatever, like in whether, barring extreme circumstances, if I've signed my name on the dotted line for something and I'm there to do it, like I'm going to take my beating
Uh-huh.
if I have to, you know?
And yeah, you show up and you fight. I think that is
Yeah.
uh there we go.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yes,
Okay,
we're good.
you're good.
But yeah, I think that is I think that the mentality of it's okay to lose and you probably learn a lot from taking your beating
Yeah.
is a very ignored mentality. If you were training with clean, I feel like that was the most important thing
Yeah.
out of everything else.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure Pirates told you a ton about, I met Pirate and Pirate through Clean. I met Vava just at a tournament years ago. But like, I remember Clean would invite me and this other dude named Henry over to train with David and Pirate. And man, like the wars he would put us in, like we would fight and we'd fight. And like, somebody would always have the edge for a while. And like Henry would be going with Devin, and I'd be going with David, and we'd fight. And it wasn't until the other person won. Like, so like say me and David were going and say like I was just catching him on points or like a submission or whatever. It wasn't until the other person had won you got to stop training. Like in like, and this is after like an hour and a half of throw by drills, like Tories and whatnot. But like, yeah, he would make the other, like he'd always pick somebody that had a little bit of an edge over the other person. And you would go until that other person broke.
That sounds like very similar to what all the stories that I hear about clean. My favorite one I've told on the podcast before. He did a seminar one time at a school. And the next day, and we were part of the affiliation. The next day, they were doing an in-school tournament. I didn't go to his seminar, but he was reffing matches and he was coaching the guys that went to his seminar while he was reffing matches to a point where I had this guy in a loop choke, in closed guard, full on tight loop choke. And he gets down on his hands and knees and is whispering in this dude's ear, "Come on, man, you got to push on the elbow. You can do it." And I'm like, dude, you're the ref. What's going on?
Yeah. Clean is a trip. He was a very important part of my jiu-jitsu journey, whether or not I like to think like as a child, whenever you see your parents raise you or whatever, you always think about the things they did great, but then you always think about like, oh, well, I don't want to be this way.
Mm-hmm.
Like I got a good amount of both of that from training with him. Yeah, I got a lot of toughness stuff from training with him, but there's also things that I got that I'm like, maybe I don't want to be that guy who puts my uki to sleep in the middle of the session. But
I could see that. I could see how that could deter people from coming to the gym too. I could there are times that people are there are times that people are just kind of weenies and that's why they don't come back. But sometimes, if you're getting choked unconscious a few times per session, I'd be like, you know what? I'm questioning it. I'm questioning it too. On that note, when your lineage, we kind of talked about this before and just a little bit before we started, but your lineage is very mixed with who you have gotten your belts under and who you've trained under, correct?
Yeah, completely. I think one thing I really feel strongly about, especially in the Kansas City area particularly, is for the most part, I kind of think, people don't give credit where credit's due and kind of lineage in Kansas City is kind of BS. Like, I mean, and that's not talking crap on anybody. Like, it's just like, it's just recognizing where your skills are really coming from, and it's not, I didn't learn from Maeda, because so-and-so 100 years ago did, like, and I understand the concept of lineage. I do think it's important to kind of understand and know the process, but I think Kansas City lineage, it's just a big bastardization of people don't really understand,
And I think that wouldn't matter if you didn't run into as many people as you probably do that say stuff like, oh, well, I train under this school and this is who. And in truth, people that believe that stuff are ignorant, right? Because you don't, I mean, if you train directly under someone, obviously you are learning from them. But like my coach, Kyle, I have been under my coach, Kyle, since day one. Very, 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 very few techniques do we do that are the same. Like, I bet you there are probably like 10 moves in all of jiu-jitsu that he and I do exactly the same. And that does not mean I didn't come up under him. It's just jiu-jitsu is an art, and to act like it stays the same from one person to the next or from 10 people down to you is the most ignorant thing ever. I would say, and I just wanted your opinion on this, would you think that lineage was more important back in the day before there was as much, I guess, just easy way to get new techniques, before we had the internet, before we had BJJ fanatics with everything?
Definitely super was more important back then. Now, I just think the widespread information availability, it's just, you can't really say that it's the people that you actively train with, that you actively, like, your lineage, Kyle, that's definitely, that's your lineage. Like, you were there. My lineage, right? Like, I spent a lot of time with Clean, but like, really, I spent my time with Devin. I spent my time with Baba. I spent my time with Travis Conley. I spent my time with, Taylor Kettler. Now, like, the lineage always keeps going. Like, you met my new purple belt student named Angel. I mess up his name. I always mess it up. Veracruzzo, I think. But, he came here from California, from Josh Barnett. And like, dude, now I've got a whole new piece of my lineage now that I'm learning like all this weird catch wrestling stuff where you're crushing people's diaphragms constantly. And that's what I think lineage is. Like, I came up like, kind of like, Ethan Day was my first coach, like my first real BJJ coach. And he's come and gone a million times, like, as far as to Brazil, to Japan. Now he's in Colorado, and I always touch base with him. And, he's still, I consider him part of my lineage because he spends time with me, and, he talks to me, he actually coaches me, gives me advice and works with me. But like, I'm under Kyotera. Like, Kyotera is my association. I feel like, and I've really embraced his game, like going through his curriculum and learning it. But, I chose to associate with Kyotera, not to say like, oh, well, I'm a Kyotera black belt or whatever. And like, no, like, I chose to go under Kyotera because his morals and his work ethic and his ideas, like, I identify with, and, like, I feel like it's something that I want to represent, and I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does. It makes perfect sense. So I think a lot of times too, people like to pull the old, I'm a black belt and I switch affiliations. And then I'm like, yeah, I'm under Kyo, I train with him all the time. And so like, dude, you met the guy twice. And I think that is, those are generally the people that are big on lineage, is the people that don't have it. They're looking for an identity for their jiu-jitsu, and they say, oh yeah, well, that's who I'm under now. That's what my jiu-jitsu identity is.
exactly. I chose Kyle because like, man, like uh I met Kyle and I met Nick, the other half of his association. Like they kind of just took me under, and they were just like really nice to me, giving me business advice, telling me the things I need to work on for my business. And they just had a just general attitude of you know, one, it's only jujitsu, and two, like, have fun, and like we're like, let's help each other. Let's help each other have better jujitsu. Let's help run each other's business. Let's blow each other up. And it's just they were just so positive, and I was like, I just want to be a part of what you guys are growing. And it's been great to be a part of that. But like, I'll never be like, yeah, I'm a Kyotera black belt. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I'm under Kyo. Like, I text him, I'll send him videos of techniques I'm working on and whatnot. He always, dude, so willing to help out. But, my jujitsu, like right now, I'm still cutting my teeth with Devin. I'm still cutting my teeth with my students. Like that guy in the Angel that came, brought his like 2-time national champion wrestling coach. Like now that's a part of me. Like that's
Uh-huh.
who I am.
Yeah, that was I showed up that Sunday morning like 2 weeks ago. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, we're gonna get some training. Like, oh, cool, Charlie's here. Haven't seen him in a while. Man, who's this? Who's this purple belt that he's got? Like, I don't want to roll with this kid. He looks tough. And then I did a few rounds, and I was like, I'm feeling good. And then I was like, no, I'll try to avoid him the best I can. And then we got to the point where you go, hey, Josh, will you roll with my purple belt Angel? And I go,
Yeah.
oh no, don't
Yeah.
make me do this. And I shot a sweep single on him, and I
Oh yeah.
bounced off of him. And I went, yeah, that's what I thought was going to happen here.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Yeah, that was a rough one. But those guys are so those type of guys are so important to have at your gym. Guys that are just your top guys, because they make everybody better. Whether teaching or whether just giving people somebody to try to get, somebody to try to strive for that's different. I remember when Kyle, when I was a blue belt, I would roll with Kyle and I was his highest belt. And obviously it wasn't close when I would roll with Kyle, but then all the other white belts I would roll with, it wasn't close. And then we would get visiting purple belts that would stay for 6 months. And it was like, finally, I have somebody that's better than me, but just enough that I can try to chase that, and give me that next building block. And those guys, just having guys that are good at grappling is such an important factor into running a gym. And on that note, because I know you do put a lot of thought into it, and I know not a lot of people put a ton of thought into what they're teaching and how they're teaching, but I wanted to kind of ask you about with your classes, do you kind of have a curriculum, or do you just, kind of how do you run how do you teach your students technique is basically what I'm asking.
Yeah. So it changes from fundamentals to advanced, right? So for like our fundamentals class, one of the things we do, and which I love, some people might not like it, but I love it. Whenever I joined the Kyotera Association, like the expectation is to know and understand and be able to teach Kyotera's fundamental curriculum. So like I joined his association and I was like, okay, so I went there for a couple weeks. I trained with him, and like I'm thinking, okay, Americana class, like I can do an Americana or whatever. And it's like, you go through what a 12-time world champion thinks whenever they do an Americana, and it's like, wow, I don't know jujitsu at all.
And it weighs 115 pounds too.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And
for sure.
the amount of technique you're going to need to finish that Americana is substantial, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. And he like, I remember one day, like I'm pretty good at like half guard, and he was like doing half guard passing as part of his fundamental class, like showing us what his expectations are, which he also has online, which I highly recommend if anybody's looking to get like a solid base for their fundamental jujitsu. Like Kyotera online, their fundamental curriculum is insane. But like I'm thinking he's doing this half guard, like that would not happen to me. and then we roll. And I mean, he does literally the curriculum just in succession, no problem on me. And I'm like 180 pounds. Like, and before that, I wouldn't say I sucked at jujitsu, but then I'm like, wow, I freaking suck. So for fundamentals, like there's an expectation for people to get their blue belt. There's an expectation, like they know what they need to know. Like they have reference material, because one, I teach it in a flow, like in order, but for advanced, I kind of break it down and I go month by month. Like this week is De La Riva month, and we're going to start with breaking them down to combat base, and then going to deep De La X, and then getting this tilt sweep. Okay, what do I do if they get the sleeve back and I can't do the tilt sweep? Like I try to go in succession on guards, and then like next month we're going to go into probably barambolos, because on the tilt sweep, a lot of times if you do it well enough, they'll fall backwards first, which that just kind of flows in. But like I try to, because I always encourage the white belts and lower belts to stay for the advanced class, even people that like their third class, like just stay. Like, because it's always going to end up in a position where you're going to be able to take something out of it. So I have this third class white belt, and he's trying to learn deep De La X, this tilt sweep to the back. And, he has no idea what's going on. But I'm like, we get to the back and I'm like, okay, here's what's going to happen. Like they're going to curl up, and this is how you open them up and get the back. And I was like, that's the one thing you need to remember. Like, all this other stuff right now, you're saying, oh man, Charlie taught me this BS guard. In 2 years, you're going to be like, oh, that wasn't BS. That was a thing.
That is, I get that so much. My curriculum repeats every half of a year, not the techniques, but the positions. And so I will always notice that my students that come in at like, that come in and do a month of side control, they don't seem to grasp it a lot of the times the first month. 6 months later, they do side control, and I could teach the exact same moves, and they'll be like, oh, I get it now. I've rolled enough to understand why this situation is even important. I'm realizing that most of my time is spent either on top or on bottom in this position, and they start to learn it. And I really think that having a curriculum like that, where you spend long periods of time on positions or moves, I really think that is just infinitely more superior than, hey, what do I feel like teaching tonight? I guess we're going to do half guard, And even if the technique is the same, just getting a month to focus on something and a month to learn something. Because every time we do it, we're always positional sparring. And I'm positional sparring with my guys, and I will notice like, wow, I actually feel good at escaping this position now by the end of the month. And just spending that time. Where did you kind of get that, the idea for your advanced class, and running it that way?
Yeah. So it's been a process, right? Like, and sometimes it's a little difficult because I'm not the only teacher at my club, but that's also a good thing. Because like, if like I have one black belt, his name's Ryan Van Gorp, and I have a couple brown belts, that will teach for me. And it's like, they come to my classes, but sometimes they can't, and that's okay. Because for the most part, I like to keep a flow, but it's good for them to be exposed to, like, I have a guy named Zach Busha. He's great at jiu-jitsu. His De La Riva is completely different from mine. So sometimes it's a nice change of gears. Sometimes people might not understand the way or why I play De La Riva the way I play it, no matter how much I try to break it down for them. But then they get to either hear the same thing explained a different way through different eyes, or they get to see like, okay, well, I like to do this. And, they get a different look. So I like to think we have a really good thing going with the variety of instructors we have. But we definitely do try to always keep on the same course, because like, just seeing something once or a position once and then moving on. It's like even whenever you show like that random white belt, if he came to every De La Riva class this month, he'll probably never even be able to get to the De La X. And that's fine. And I always tell people, did you do the technique? Well, no, I didn't. That sucks. I'm like, oh, that sucks. Okay. Do you understand the technique?
Mm-hmm.
And they say, well, yes, I completely understand the technique. It's like, that's the most important part. Like, don't try to copy my moves.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're copying my moves, that's worse than not knowing the technique, or,
Mm-hmm.
understand it, and you'll be able to apply it later.
I think I think that is dead on. I think that that is a big missing piece for a lot of people in jiu-jitsu is a lot of things do repeat themselves, or at least a lot of ideas, right?
Mm-hmm.
For example, controlling the head in a lot of positions, just learning to control the head is important. And if you
Yeah.
only think about it as techniques, okay, I'm inside control, I have under the head and I have under the arm, and then I'm in mount I'll be under the head and under the arm, and you never recognize, hey, it's nice that I can use these two techniques or these 10 techniques. They really all are the same idea. It
Yeah.
makes it so much easier to learn jujitsu. And I think a lot of people don't do that. On our on this note, and this is kind of still on curriculum, but it'll transition us a little bit.
Yeah.
Is your teaching schedule going to be dependent on what you're working at your fire department?
Yeah, typically. So I work 10 days a month, and they're 24-hour shifts. So, I mean, there are 10 days a month that I can't be at the gym, and that rotates. So it's like day on, day off, day on, day off, day on, and then I have 4 days off.
Okay.
So I find my free time, or like my days off, I put a very big expectation on myself to try to be there for every single class.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of been able to get a little looser. Like, sometimes I'll take the mornings off because I need to go condition, or I need to go, train with some of my friends so I can get a few different looks in. But for the most part, like, I put a big on for every class, which makes some things hard. But like I said, with the variety of instructors I have, like, I feel like as long as the instructors are on the same page with what our goals and the curriculum for the next month or next week or whatever it is, like, I think everyone's getting a huge benefit out of seeing those different looks.
I think that that's something that not a lot of coaches do. A lot. Well, they do it only for necessity. They have people teach classes, other people teach classes for necessity. And in truth, I don't think you always have to. I think that like this month, I just started this. I'm experimenting with it. So it could end up being horrible and I could be completely wrong. But this month is like we have a month of random on our curriculum. We have 5 months that are always structured the same. And then our 6th month, we'll do something completely different. So maybe we'll do all leg locks or all something like that, just something different, all wrestling, something like that. Well, this month is our odd month. And I go, you know what? I think we should do, I have a lot of purple belts now, a few brown belts, and then a few black belts. And I want these guys to get more experience teaching. And some of my black belts teach already. Some of my purple belts do. Some of my brown belts do. But I'm making like everybody who has a purple belt teach at some point this month. And so I will be like, hey, this day you're going to teach. I'll be there. So if you have questions, you can ask. But I've noticed that every single, because they're just showing their best stuff. But every single class, I have learned something from, whether it's one of my purple belts, whether some of them we'll do 3 moves. I learned 3 new thoughts on techniques or something like that. But every single class doing that, I'm like, well, if I'm learning something here, I'm sure that everybody else is too. I'm sure that they didn't know this, or they never had that perspective. And just, understanding that you don't have to teach every class is something that a lot of coaches, I think, never get to realize. They teach every kid's class, they teach every adult class. And I think it's a really good thing to note. You don't have to do that.
Yeah, I think that's huge. The Angel guy came in, he's been with me for 4 months, and, purple belt comes in. I'm not used to really losing any rounds in my gym almost ever, unless I'm playing with students, letting them do their thing. And Angel came in, and, he's a wrestler. Okay, no big deal. Okay, purple belt. He comes into Nogi, and we're going at it, and next thing I know, I go, oh, like you just passed my best position. Like, oh, like now it's like I'm working my ass off. Oh, my diaphragm's being crushed.
uh,
Like, so he does like the Josh Burnett, like sit out, like,
uh-huh.
and I'm like, oh, okay. It's like that. And then,
I guess I'm
so
dying here.
yeah. And then we keep going, and then we have great rounds, and like, he just has good flow. He's not like trying to murder anyone. He's rolling really well and having fun. And a couple classes, I'm like, hey man, like, I'm good at gi and no gi both, but like I really prefer the gi. And honestly, like I'd like to learn some of what you
Mm-hmm.
have, and like whether I'm here or not, like I'd I'd like you to take some no gi classes. Uh and he starts teaching. So I show up on the days that I'm off. I show up to his no gi classes or his wrestling classes, and I do that. Like I have a blue belt that was teaching wrestling for a while that he does still do a great job, and whenever he does it, and I love building people up, like because sometimes like I have people will start teaching and like it's okay, and like for me that's hard because I'm like, oh my god, it's got to be great, it's got to be a great performance. You got to get people hyped, you got to get people
Uh-huh.
high energy, but like that's your opportunity to play a different role as a coach,
Mm-hmm.
to coach their coaching.
I
So
completely agree.
yeah, and again, like I've learned so much about communicating with people in those roles, and I've learned so much different jujitsu and wrestling because I've done that since we've opened our club. Like, it's awesome to give people those tools to be able to teach, because that's something that they'll be able to carry throughout their life and like really use so many other places.
Mm-hmm. And it's like your jujitsu business doesn't just have to be you, and it doesn't, and it probably is better
Yeah.
if it's not just you. It probably if I'm teaching 3 or 4 classes in a day, there is no way that I can bring the energy that it takes to make them all
Yeah.
really good. They can all be
Yeah.
good, but just to make them all exceptional. And or I could teach 2 in a day, make them really good, and then have 2 other guys that are learning to teach, learning to get better, kind of run the other classes. And you're right, it's a benefit for them maybe if they want to open up their own school or something like that. But I really think
Mm-hmm.
that the biggest reason a lot of coaches don't do it is because they feel threatened. They feel like, well, if
Yeah.
I
Big
show
time.
that if I show that I don't have all the answers, then people are going to leave, or they're going to want to go train with somebody else. And maybe some people
Yeah.
are, but you don't want those people in your gym anyway. Like you don't want to deal with
Yeah.
people that
Exactly.
don't understand jujitsu in that sense, and they think like, oh yeah, if it's not a black belt teaching me, I can't learn. You
Yeah.
can't have that. And so yeah, I think that is a really good, I would say, just leadership quality that you have that just not a lot of people, even that I interview, have. People want to teach everything. Um,
Yeah. I
but
tell my students all the time, I mean, I don't have all the answers. Like I've gone onto the mats and I have a lot of answers because I've gotten my kind of ass beat a lot and I've had to look for answers, but I don't have all the answers. And so anyone in that room could have a better answer than me.
and man, that's so it's so important. That's something that I always learned from my coach. He would always, every time we would do a seminar, he would go, "You guys know I don't have the answers, and I brought this guy in because I'm pretty sure he's got them." And that would always be his intro to doing seminars, and that gave I think all of us a perspective of like, okay, you don't have to act like you know everything,
Yeah.
and I think that is a really cool thing to be able to have. But on the still relating to you being a firefighter, how do you keep up with your training as a competitor while running a
Yeah.
school and while being a firefighter?
Yeah. So sometimes that's a challenge
Uh
for
huh.
sure. Cause like, I take overtime, or like sometimes I take a teacher's role in our department sometimes. And like, that's extra work, like whether it's at home or at the department. Uh, I'm a paramedic, like a very paramedic as well in my department. So I help teach EMS there. You know, at work, you know, we get the opportunity to work out, right? So I try to use those as my days. Like whenever I'm working out, like I try to treat that like a jiu-jitsu class. Like I tell my students, like, you better be working the whole time, you know, on the technique, or whenever it's time to train, it's time to train. Like you, not to dilly dally around. So I try to focus on those things. And then on my days off, like, you know, it's the same. Like I try to make sure I get my time with, you know, Devin and my friend Travis, or like I try to meet up with Angel and another student, Michael Lynch, like on the regular, like my better guys to focus on different things. But like I really just, it takes a lot of focus sometimes. And, you know, other times, like there's outside factors that come in, like a hard night at work, like you're up all night on whatever. And, you know, like I found recently in the last couple of years that, I used to be like, you know, don't ever miss training for any reason. Like if you say you're going to be there, like you better be there. And, you know, I've found, especially in the last couple of years, to kind of, you know, relax on that a little bit, take care of your, you know, your mental health a little bit too. Cause sometimes in life, you know, you don't know what other people have gone through the day before that day. And sometimes they might cancel on you. And that's fine. You know, you reach out to them and see what they're doing and whatnot. But like, I mean, even myself, like I've had to cancel a random training session because, you know, I just had a really tough night at work, via like whatever, like something I saw, or being up all night, you know. It does take a lot of focus sometimes, especially in tournament season. It takes a lot of me to say, you know what, it doesn't matter that I had a rough night. It's time to go. But I do have to be aware of those situations where it's actually hurting me to be there. Like there's a point of diminishing returns. But everyone else, you know, I tell everyone, like, I want you to find your balance, but I also want you to make a commitment, right? Make a commitment to like, I got to be there this many times, you know? And if you miss it because of whatever family thing or this or that, like do your best to make up for it somewhere else another time. You have to take care of your mind. So whenever you show up to jiu-jitsu, you can really, you know, maximize what you're getting out of it.
All right. There are a few things I want to pull from that. That was good. I would say, let me ask you this first. If somebody struggled with that, somebody struggled with the balance of jiu-jitsu in a sense of when should I push myself? Because actually an episode came out today of recording that I did kind of all about that, being burned out and struggling in jiu-jitsu. If you, you know, if somebody struggles with that kind of stuff of when should I train? Am I beat up? Am I too beat up to train? Am I reaching that diminishing returns? How would you give them advice on being able to get there?
Man, gosh, everything is so individual on that. So like for me, it's just kind of a general feeling. Like whenever I feel like, man, like if I'm like, I don't want to go to practice, like I don't feel it in my heart, because I love jiu-jitsu more than anything. I study when I'm at work. I'm probably watching 4 hours of jiu-jitsu videos a day, like in between whatever we're doing. I'm thinking about the class, like I'm thinking about everything. And then whenever I'm not at work, what can I do? What can I do? But whenever I'm feeling like, man, like I don't have it, like you can't tell someone that they do have it. You know, you can, whenever somebody's feeling that, I usually still encourage them to show up, you know, because I generally show up, but I tell them like, hey, just show up. You don't got to roll. Just have fun.
That's good.
Just have fun. Like don't like if it's a competition class, whatever, you know, like you don't got to roll. Just do the technique, and you know, I want you to enjoy being here. Like enjoy this opportunity and this moment and these people that are happy to see you. And don't push it. Like just come and have fun. There's you don't got to roll. You don't got to, you know, go crazy, you know, like just come and enjoy your friends because they want to enjoy you.
That's really good advice. That is.
And I think that idea has kind of helped me as well. Cause like, I mean, some days, those hard nights at work, personal stuff, like everything piles on, and nobody knows how people deal with that stuff inside their mind.
Mm-hmm.
So if I see someone that's like, you can generally, how your students are, right? And if you can see it on their face, or, how they're talking to you, whatever, it's like, hey, just don't worry about going hard. Like, just, go with Joe Blow white belt over there, and like, just have a fun round, or just literally just sit back and watch. Like, I'm happy you're here. That's the big thing. Like, I try to tell my students, like, you don't have to train. When it's time to train, it's time to train. But whenever it's time to take care of yourself, like, take care of yourself, and, realize that we're always here when you can't be that person that's going to go out on their shield in practice.
I think that is really sound advice for people. That's for me. That's really sound advice for me. And it's something I struggle with so much as a coach, is like, hey, if I am here, I'm going to train. And if I'm going to train, I'm going to train to my full capacity with the best guys we got. And I think that's fun and that's fine. But I have been just been dealing with a lot of injuries this year, and taking days where I just go, okay, I'm going to still go teach class, and then I'm going to drill with a few guys during rolling, or I'm going to only roll with our smaller guys and some of our girls, just people that aren't going to injure me worse or push me too hard, and kind of getting that is really important. Another note from earlier that I wrote was you're talking about getting a group of guys together in training. What does, and these guys are probably like, they sound like they're all higher belts, they're all going to be tough people. They're good at jiu-jitsu. What is what does the training look like? Is it live rounds, sparring, or positional sparring, drilling? What do you usually?
So it depends. So like, I do my own competition thing whenever I'm up on Sundays here in Lawrence, and a good amount of times, like a lot of my other hard training, like I'll go up, and me and Pirate and Vava, like I'll go up with his guys and train, because I know they have the mentality. So it depends where you go, right? Like for me at my gym, most of the time it will look like the first half of it's going to be positionals, right? And it's going to be hard positionals. Like, it's not going to be like, we'll do guards and whatnot, but it's going to be like, they're on your back, they're on your, they're smashing you from half guard flat, and you've got 3 minutes and it's a fight. Like, and like, whenever I'm coaching those rounds, like I'm constantly changing the scenario. So like, if you were the guy being smashed in half guard flat, and you're down by one. Okay, well, you got up and you swept them. Technically, you're up by one. Like, no, you're not. You're down. You're down by 5 now, and there's 30 seconds. Like,
oh my gosh!
Like trying to make them push the pace, And regardless, like, again, like I say, I have a few rules in my gym, and one of my rules, and I actually had a big speech in my class about it last night. Like, I want you to go as hard as you're comfortable with. And I want everyone to train hard. I want everyone to be tougher. But like, I tell them, like, whatever happens, if I ever see you get up from a round where you lost, or I put you in a situation where you lost or whatever, I'd better never see you get up with like an angry look on your face. Like, never, there's no place for that in my training room. Like, it's okay, what can I do better and whatnot? But yeah, like I said, the competition rounds, just pushing the pace. We're rolling for at least an hour straight. You got that 1 minute to recover, and then you're back in there. And every now and then, like, I feel like we're pretty basic, but we do make sure, like, every single person was made uncomfortable.
And that's really good. That's really good training with that. I think that is a really fun attitude to have. We're kind of to the end of our time. We always finish the podcast with the same question. So the question is this. I am at one of your seminars and I am a brand new blue belt. We're doing question and answer. I raise my hand and I say, Charlie, I suck at jiu-jitsu. How do I suck less?
I'm sure you get a lot of the standard answers of show up, and that's a big part of it. But be present, one. And I'll take this. One of the worst pieces of advice that I used to get from a coach after a tournament was, whatever would happen. Second place, you'd lose, whatever. They'd say, we'll train harder. That's like, if I hear somebody say that, like, I want to explode. Or they'll say, more fuel for the fire. And I'm like, dude, this fire's out of control, bro. Like,
it's not my toughness and my grit that lost me that match.
No, it's in class or in a tournament. Be smart. Look at why you lost, or look at the things you're doing wrong. What position did I lose? And then go through and fix the small things that you can fix. The answer is very rarely. Sometimes it is train harder. Some people are soft, but a lot of times that's not the answer for like your average to decent jiu-jitsu competitor. It's like, train smarter. What did you do that lost you that match? Okay, well, you were doing this half guard pass that you hit on everyone, but this one person did this one little thing. Like, you need to be aware of that. You need to be smart with your jiu-jitsu, and you need to, be very introspective and objective about what you're doing. Like, oh, well, that just didn't work because he's too good. Like, no, it didn't work because there was something you didn't know, and it's your job to find that.
That is a great answer on that. And I love that the answer is not train harder. I think you're right, man. People really do not realize that jiu-jitsu technique is really important.
Yes.
They do. We talked about how it is not the only thing. You do have to be able to train hard. You can't be soft. You have to have those other things. But you also remember, most guys that you're fighting are pretty mentally tough. By the time you get to purple belt, these guys they're professionals. They take it seriously.
Yes.
You really usually have to beat them by being smarter than them.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I think that is a great answer. If is there anything you want to say before we end?
No, I mean, I guess if I had to say something to anyone in jiu-jitsu, be aware who you really learn from. Don't give your partners and your coaches their due respect, right? No matter who they're under, you're not like this, you're not under this, whatever. You're not under this banner. You didn't learn from Maeda and whatever, but give everyone their due respect. Give your partners their due respect. Because like I said, my lineage and whatnot should really, especially in our area, the Midwest, like, it's really your friends, like your friends that are there cutting their teeth with you and like out there doing it. So like, I always try to shout out like my best training partners, my best friends, like tell my students, like, they're all my best training partners, like Angel, Michael Lynch, all these people, like Devin Pirate, the people at Body Fit, people, they bring people in like you, like I take from that, like this is our lineage, like especially in the Midwest, like we're just struggling to keep up, right? And I think we're doing a hell of a job, but a lot of that stuff happens because guys like you, guys like Pirate, guys like, you are constantly going out and looking for the answers, and give that respect to your partners and your coaches, but also give them the respect and try to go out and do that yourself. Like, go out and find the answers for yourself and bring back more,
That is, that's a good way. That's a good place to finish. If somebody wanted to follow you on anything, follow your journey, do you have any place that they could do that?
Yeah. My name is on Instagram. I post a lot of stuff from my jiu-jitsu, and tournament results and stuff from the school, like Chaz Bucket with 2 T's, ChazBuckett. You follow and give me a shout out. Like if you've ever, one of my favorite things is whenever random people that have stopped by the school or been to one of my seminars, they will message me and tell me like, hey, like I hit that thing that you do, like that thing that you showed. And like, so even if you've ever been to one of my seminars, man, like especially please like follow me and, let me know what you're working on and let me know how it's going. And like, I'd love to hear and see other people's journey too.
I think that would be really cool. Not to add anything to your already full plate, but I think you might need your own podcast, man. I think there was a lot of good nuggets from that, and I think that there would be a lot of people that would listen.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate your show, man. Like you're putting out really, really great stuff, and a lot of times I feel like I listen to that I told you I listen to that Sean Williams podcast. And I almost feel like, I'm like, oh man, like I think the same way. And like,
dude, I feel the same. I do the same stuff.
Yeah. So it's great stuff you're doing. I really appreciate you having me on. And thanks for what you're doing for Midwest Jiu Jitsu. Really, like,
yeah, man,
doing this is a big deal.
Thank you for being on.
Yeah. Thank you.
And that is the episode. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Again, just a little reminder, if you did enjoy it and you are listening on Apple Podcasts, please leave us a review, hopefully 5 stars. I'd be cool with 4. Be a little sad at 3. Nothing. Don't leave any 2s or 1s. That would break my heart. But leave us a review. Let us know that you're enjoying the podcast. Thank you again to Charlie for being on the show. I know that you guys really enjoyed that one. If you listen to this show regularly, a lot of the talking points, a lot of the stuff we get on is very much what we talk about on the show, what we try to get to the bottom of on the show. And I really love the perspective that Charlie offered. So that is all I have for you guys today. Something to just note, something, if you guys are feeling generous, I've always told you guys that at episode 100, I am going to start sponsorships on the show. We're going to start running a few commercials, and don't worry, you're not going to get a show that has a ton of commercials and be really annoying. But you're going to get a show that has better production quality and is not done from my living room, because I'll be making money off this show. It's always crazy for people to realize, but technically I have never made $1 off the I Suck at Jiu Jitsu show. I'm probably negative quite a bit on the I Suck at Jiu Jitsu show, just spending money to buy equipment and to learn how to podcast. But that doesn't matter. I don't know why I went off on that tangent. Been going off on a lot of tangents in my intro and outro. But if you guys want to either let me know if there's a company that you might think of that I should reach out to in order to get a sponsorship for the show in 5 weeks when we release episode 100 or sometime after, or if you guys are business owners and would like to sponsor the show, please reach out to me. You can always reach out to me on Instagram at the Josh McKinney, or you can email me, josh@simplifyingjujitsu.com. That is all I have for you guys today. I hope that you guys have a great rest of your day. I hope that you guys got a lot out of this episode like I did. I hope you guys leave me a 5-star review for the podcast. And most of all, I hope that you suck just a little bit less at jiu-jitsu.